Hello and welcome. This is Ikaruga for the Nintendo GameCube. And apparently this version is published by Atari. That's interesting. This game, Treasure is one of my most favorite game companies out there, and Ikaruga is one of those reasons as to why I love Treasure so much. So Ikaruga is a top-down, not exactly a space shooter, but it is a shoot 'em up. Shoot 'em up. A lot of people like to refer to the genre of games as shmup. So, to be honest, I'm actually not a huge fan of shmups. But this game is the exception. It is one of the best games I've played, period. Not just one of the best shmups out there. So, what's so special about this game? Well, this game has quite a few interesting, I'm not going to say gimmicks, I'm going to say some really interesting mechanics that gives this game a lot of depth. So as you can see, there are two kinds of ships attacking me, white and black ships, and of course white ships fire white bullets and black ships fire black bullets. Now as you can tell, I'm the only ship that can actually switch between these two different polarities. So like for instance, if I am white polarity, I can absorb white bullets. If I'm black polarity, I can absorb black bullets. And that adds quite a lot of new things to the table when it comes to this game. For instance, if I'm white and I'm shooting at a black ship, I will literally deal double the damage just because of that. Whereas if I get shot by a black bullet while I'm in white polarity, that will kill me instantly. So yes, it's one of those get hit once, you're dead type of games. So fortunately I have 4 lives to spare. I can't remember exactly how far I go with just those 4 lives. A lot of strategy, not so much reflexes, but yeah, a lot of memorization and it's difficult. What can I say? I previously mentioned that Contra was, a lot of people say it's a really hard game, but once you memorize a little bit of a few things in Contra, it actually becomes a fairly easy game. Ikaruga, on the other hand, is a really challenging game, and I know it doesn't look like much, but that's just because I'm in level 1 or stage 1, and I'm also playing on easy mode, so it doesn't look very difficult. But trust me, it gets really hard as the game progresses, and that's why I'm playing this game on easy, because for those that don't know, this is actually a Japanese game that's been released to the West. And the thing about the Japanese is that they tend to make games that are extremely difficult, or a lot of games out there are more challenging than Western games. So like for instance, even though this game is called even though this game is set to easy mode, I wouldn't exactly say that easy is easy. I would say that easy is more like hard mode, and hard mode is impossible mode. This game gets really crazy. I remember the reason why I'm staying as the white polarity is because of the foggy background. That way the black dots, the black bullets, stands out a lot more, so it's easier for me to dodge everything and not worry about pretty much everything else. Just throwing ships at me, but like I said, this part isn't really difficult, but I think around by halfway in stage 3 and onward, the difficulty really does spike like you cannot believe. But one thing I really like about this game is that the gameplay is 2D, but it's a fully 3D rendered game. And what's interesting is that only three people made this game. And now I know that doesn't sound very impressive, but back in 2000, 99, 2000, that was actually pretty impressive, because there's a lot of stuff going on here, and especially when it comes to when they programmed this game. I mean, there's just so many things that they thought about. Like, for instance, when you to make things a little bit more interesting, if you try to shoot 3 ships in a row that are of the same polarity, you get a score bonus. So yes, there is a scoring system in this game, and the score bonus, if you get a high enough number, I believe that number is 2 million points. If you get 2 million points, or rather for every 2 million points, you will get an extra life, and that is something that I'm definitely trying to achieve. I'm trying to chain my attacks as best as I can, meaning, fire 3 ships of the same polarity in a row. So yeah, this part, it's all about just being aware of your surroundings. And fortunately, the bullets aren't just black and white, but they are, the black bullets have sort of a reddish tint to it, and the blue and the white bullets have a blue tint to it. So it's very easy to distinguish between each bullet. I guess that's one of the reasons why I really like this game, whereas generally I'm not really into shmups, and that's because shmups, sometimes I die in a shmup and I have no idea what just killed me, and whereas in Ikaruga, as difficult as this game is, almost always, in almost every instance I die, I know exactly what just killed me. Sometimes it's a stray bullet, or sometimes I just crashed into another ship. And that's because if you look at this game, it actually is a somewhat slow-moving game. It's not an incredibly fast-paced game, but because there's so much stuff happening on the screen, it doesn't feel slow and boring. It's definitely a high in action. This is a very interesting boss. Now, this game has a lot of interesting symbolisms. Like, for instance, this big boss ship that you're fighting has sort of that yin-yang design to it. So like the white and the black curvy design. In fact, there's a lot of symbolism, but to be honest, I don't know even half of the symbolism in this game, because it's Japanese heavy stuff. I mean, I think there are even some references to maybe Buddhism or something. In fact, each level is named after like a principle in Buddhism, and I believe, like, I can't remember if it's this level, but one of these levels is called faith, so it's kind of an interesting theme that this game has. There, I just got an extra life, totally with chaining attacks, assuming I can do it, because I mean sometimes things gets a bit hectic. So it's easy to chain those ships that are coming down, because they are always in 3s, but the ships in the middle top, they just kind of these random rotating ships, and they're difficult to chain, so I just don't bother with those kinds of ships. And these lasers, they actually kind of push my ship in a certain direction, and that adds another level of difficulty. But fortunately, my ship has quite a few, only a few capabilities, but other than switching between polarities and of course shooting, having the standard blaster for shooting down ships, I also have homing lasers. So if you look to the left of the screen there's sort of like a bar being replenished every time I absorb energy from those bullets. That bar is used to clear the screen just like that, just what happened back there. Homing lasers are very useful in this game, and that's pretty much it. I can switch between polarities, I can shoot, and I can use homing lasers, and that's all that the ship can do. And yet there's just so much depth to the ship, to this game. Like for instance, you know, do I switch to the same polarity as the enemy ship and stay safe, or do I switch to the opposite polarity and deal double the damage? I mean, there's just so much to think about when it comes to this kind of gameplay, and it's really this, for instance, you know, was really difficult the first time I played this. That caught me off guard, those lasers coming from the side, but once you remember them, it's easy to avoid certain death. This is actually kind of funny. If you look here, I'm basically not being destroyed by those ships, and it looks like they're crashing into me, but the reason why they're blowing up is because they're actually colliding with my blaster, which means the hitbox detection on the ship is actually quite small. I'm not exactly sure why that's the case. I think it's just because maybe Treasure wanted the ship to be bigger so it's easy to see the ship, but also not have such a huge hitbox, so that this game doesn't become incredibly difficult. So that's actually kind of interesting. So like only a small part of the ship can actually crash into something. This is hectic. This is crazy stuff here. Switch to black, switch to white, dodge the bullet, switch to black again, switch to white again, and constantly, you know, my homing lasers are being replenished every time I absorb those lasers. So I'm always spamming it as quickly as I can. And every time I destroy those lasers, the bullets come out even faster, and I just have to squeeze between. Yeah, it's crazy stuff going on here. But I'm actually quite surprised to survive that, because that mini boss is quite challenging. Now here, for an example, chaining attacks here is just impossible because they're just so random. I just can't. I don't know if I could do it in threes. But anyways, okay, now this is when things really start to get difficult. This boss, it's basically shooting you from every single direction, as you can plainly see. But as you can see, I'm switching to the opposite polarity of what those guns are, of the color of those guns, because I need to deal double the damage and destroy the ship as quickly as possible. It's kind of difficult because you can't actually turn your ship around. And another difficult thing is that unfortunately I'm not playing the Xbox Live arcade version. Well, this game has been ported over to several different consoles. I'm playing on the GameCube version, and the Xbox Live version has full analog control, meaning that you can control exactly how fast your ship moves. But on the GameCube, on the Dreamcast, even on the original arcade, oh, there you go, I just died because those lasers pushed me into the walls. The GameCube does not have, neither does the Dreamcast and the arcade version have analog control. It's just digital, so I have to tap the D-pad. Yes, I'm using the GameCube D-pad, the little tiny D-pad on the GameCube, but it's actually a pretty good D-pad. So, yeah. Anyways, that was actually a fairly decent boss fight.